an underground shelter with top-notch facilities, not as fancy as Zhang Yi's villa, but it was the best the Qingpu base had to offer. Once they reached the door, Xing Tian knew it was time to leave, and he quietly slipped away. Zhang Yi's arrival quickly changed the atmosphere inside. The 6 members of the investigation team looked tense. Some eyed him with curiosity, while others, like Wu Di, glared with open hostility. Wu Di, who had never been a fan of Zhang Yi, was the first to speak up. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. Zhang Yi noticed that Wu Di's hair was now white, a sign of how much that last battle had drained him. Even though Wu Di tried to look tough, he wasn't as aggressive as before. In the past, Zhang Yi never understood why Wu Di had such a grudge against him. Maybe he was jealous? Zhang Yi couldn't help but laugh a little inside at the thought. But instead of letting it show, Zhang Yi just raised an eyebrow and said casually, "The battle is over. Can I check in on the wounded? After all, we might have to work together in the future. If I don't show up, people might think I'm cold and don't care about my teammates." That comment made the whole team frown. It sounded like Zhang Yi was already treating himself like their leader. While some members were open to him joining, they didn't like the idea of him being so bossy, even if he was powerful. Wu Di's temper flared up, and he jabbed a finger at Zhang Yi, shouting, "What makes you think you can waltz in here and join our team? Do you really think you're qualified?" Zhang Yi gave him a calm look, his expression unreadable, but there was a confident edge in his gaze. "I defeated Yuan Kongya. Do you think that makes me qualified?" Wu Di went silent, caught off guard by the blunt reply. Back when they faced Yuan Kongya, the investigation team barely survived. Wu Di himself almost lost his life. If it hadn't been for Zhang Yi, they would have all died in that fight. Deep down, they all knew they owed Zhang Yi, but Wu Di wasn't about to admit that out loud. He turned his head away, fuming silently. Seeing this, Zhang Yi's smirk grew a little wider. He glanced around the room, then said, "When you get back, make sure to give a full report about Tianhai City to the Jiangnan region leaders. They should know what I've done here." He put on a serious expression and added, "I'm truly sorry about Captain Bian Junwa's passing. If I get the chance, I'd be honored to carry on his mission, to protect this land and bring peace to the people of the Jiangnan region." Zhang Yi's dramatic tone made some of the team members cringe, and a few even rolled their eyes. His words were filled with official-sounding language, making him seem like a politician rather than the cautious fighter they remembered from before. It was a stark contrast to how he had been when the investigation team first arrived in Tianhai City. Back then, he was humble and careful. Bailey Changqing cleared his throat, trying to hide his irritation. But he forced a smile and said, "Don't worry, we'll make sure your contributions are recognized. But, of course, the decision to let you join our team has to come from the top." Zhang Yi shrugged and replied with a grin, "It's just a formality. You know how things go, right?" He slung an arm around Bailey Changqing's shoulders. "Come on, Bailey, let's have a private chat. There are some things better left between us leaders." As he spoke, he shot a quick glance at the other team members in the room, as if to remind them of their place. Some of them clenched their fists in frustration, and if Zhang Yi weren't as powerful as he was, they might have confronted him right then and there. Bailey Changqing caught Zhang Yi's meaning and decided it was worth finding out where his old friend stood. So he nodded, forcing another smile. "All right, if you want to talk, I'm all ears." Meanwhile, Zhang Yi had taken Bailey Changqing to a quieter room next door. It was a small, cozy billiard room where the team usually relaxed. Zhang Yi leaned casually against the pool table, his earlier smug grin replaced with a serious expression. His eyes locked onto Bailey Changqing's. "Brother Bailey, do you support me becoming the captain?" Zhang Yi asked directly. Bailey Changqing's eyes flickered with a hidden emotion, but he let out a small laugh. "With everything you've done, it doesn't really matter if I support you or not. The higher-ups would choose you anyway." Zhang Yi nodded, acknowledging the point. "Yeah, that's true. As long as you report my contributions honestly and add in my current strength, they'll make me captain." Bailey Changqing took a deep breath. "I wish it were that simple, but it's not. In the ZHANG region, we only have 6 special investigation teams like ours. Each one is made up of the best, carefully selected from all the mutant around here. He paused and scratched the back of his head with a friendly grin. And picking a captain? Well, that's a whole different game. It's a very strict process. Sure, you've done a lot, but you're still the new guy. ZHANG gave a slight smile. I appreciate the heads up, but I'm confident I can handle it. Bailey Changqing's smile faded a little, and he gave ZHANG a serious look. ZHANG, can I ask you something? Just how strong are you now, really? Stronger than Bian Junwo ever was, ZHANG cut in, not waiting for him to finish the question. He spoke with certainty. Now, ZHANG had powers that rivaled those of the late Bian Junwo, but his version came without any drawbacks. In terms of overall combat power, he knew he had surpassed him. Bailey Changqing blinked, taking in ZHANG's words, then slowly nodded as if a hidden suspicion had just been confirmed. He clenched his fists for a moment, then relaxed them, forcing a small smile. Maybe you've reached the level of an Epsilon mutant. If that's the case, then you definitely have what it takes to be captain. Epsilon-level mutant were beyond the understanding of ordinary people. If ZHANG had reached that level, then no matter his flaws, he was definitely qualified to lead. ZHANG thought for a moment and shook his head. I don't think I'm quite there yet. He remembered how Bian Junwo had once explained that Delta was a critical turning point in the ranks of mutant. It determined whether or not a mutant had the power to absorb and use others' abilities. Beyond that, the differences between levels got a little blurry. Only scientists in special research institutes or Epsilon-level mutant themselves could accurately judge those powers. Based on his experience, ZHANG didn't believe he'd fully reached that Epsilon level yet. After all, Yuan Kongya had shown unbelievable power when she ascended to Epsilon, a power that seemed almost world-shattering. Bailey Changqing gave a small smile at ZHANG's modesty. The more you talk, the more confident you seem. ZHANG noticed a hint of sadness in Bailey Changqing's expression. If their strengths were closer, Bailey might have had a chance at the captain's role. But now, it was clear to both of them that ZHANG's abilities far outclassed his own. ZHANG was younger, stronger, and gaining more influence. If ZHANG became captain, Bailey knew it might mean he'd never have that chance again. Just then, ZHANG's expression turned sly. He leaned in, a teasing smile curling at the edge of his mouth. What's wrong, Brother Bailey? Are you giving up already? Bailey Changqing raised an eyebrow, looking puzzled. What do you mean? ZHANG waved a hand, dismissing the question. Come on, stop pretending. Don't you want to be captain, too? Bailey Changqing let out a short laugh. All right, I'll admit it. Maybe I thought about it at first. But now. He looked ZHANG straight in the eye, his expression serious. What the investigation team really needs is a strong leader. And you're clearly the better choice. The investigation team faced danger every day. Even though they were skilled, in these tough times, they weren't invincible. They often had to confront mysterious threats and lost several teammates in the process. Their mission in Tianhai City had cost them their best captain. In situations like these, ambition had to take a back seat to the safety of the team. ZHANG shook his head slightly and said, It's not what you think. Actually, I wasn't the one who did the most to defeat Yuan Kongya. He looked directly into Bailey Changqing's eyes, speaking slowly and clearly. Your investigation team played the biggest role in this victory. Bailey Changqing's body stiffened, his eyes wide with surprise. Sure, they had managed to finish the mission, but with Bian Junwo gone and ZHANG taking most of the credit, the team had felt like they were left in the shadows. And now, ZHANG was saying that they were the real heroes of the operation? ZHANG, what are you talking about? Everyone knows you're the one who defeated Yuan Kongya. Without you, we wouldn't have had a chance against an Epsilon-level mutant. ZHANG smiled slightly at Bailey Changqing and said, But without your help, I couldn't have beaten her alone. He knew the contribution of the border forces had been crucial. and the presence of the investigation team had been a major factor in keeping the snow worship cult in check. If the team hadn't stayed in Tianhai City, Yuan Kongyao would have started wiping out the other forces long ago. Of course, Zhang Yi had a reason for telling Bailey Changqing this. Deep down, he knew he had gotten lucky. The only reason Yuan Kongyao died was because the side effects of her powers caught up with her. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Really, it's the border army that deserves the most credit. He should be remembered as the hero, Zhang Yi added. Bailey Changqing was stunned. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. The disaster in Tianhai City had been a top-level crisis, something the Jiangnan region would rank as an A-level emergency. Zhang Yi was the one who had made the biggest impact, so if he went to the Jiangnan headquarters, they would shower him with rewards. Supplies, status, luxury homes, even genetic enhancements, anything he wanted would be his for the taking. But Zhang Yi was willing to give that all up? Just like that? Bailey Changqing's mind raced, trying to understand Zhang Yi's motives. And then, it clicked. He looked at Zhang Yi and said, You don't want to go to Jiangnan headquarters, do you? Zhang Yi's smile widened as he stared at Bailey Changqing. He leaned back, sitting on the edge of the pool table, arms crossed. You catch on quickly, brother Bailey. No, I have no interest in going to Blizzard City. Bailey Changqing was surprised but then thought about Zhang Yi's situation in Tianhai City. It made sense. The shelter where Zhang Yi lived had better conditions than most of Blizzard City. And more importantly, Tianhai City was his domain. He ruled there, like a king in his own little world. Why leave all that behind to go to Jiangnan, where he'd just be another powerful pawn? I get it now, Bailey Changqing said slowly. You want us to keep quiet about the full story so you don't get summoned to the headquarters, right? But Zhang Yi didn't answer right away. He knew that in any negotiation, keeping a bit of mystery could give him the upper hand. If he showed his hand too soon, Bailey Changqing might start asking for more. So Zhang Yi just smiled, crossing his arms with a cool expression. Not exactly. I don't mind if Blizzard City knows the truth. In fact, when Bianjun was suggested I go there, I was tempted. But then I saw how hard you all fought here, and I realized it wasn't for me. So yeah, I'd rather stay here if I can. He paused, then his eyes sharpened, locking onto Bailey Changqing's. A cold, intense energy filled the room, making Bailey Changqing's chest tighten. Zhang Yi's voice dropped to a serious tone. But if I do end up going to Blizzard City, I won't settle for anything less than a captain's seat. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Zhang Yi knew that the number of captain-level mutant was small. And with Bianjun gone, Bailey Changqing had a decent shot at the position. But if Zhang Yi entered the competition, Bailey's chances would shrink to almost nothing. After all, Zhang Yi's power now far outmatched Bailey Changqing's. Zhang Yi walked closer and clapped a hand on Bailey Changqing's shoulder, giving him a meaningful look. So, I'm still undecided. Should I stay, or should I go? It's a tough call for me. He gave a small shrug and added with a sly grin, but maybe you could help me decide. Would you prefer being the leader of the investigation team, or would you rather stay a vice captain? The meaning behind Zhang Yi's words was crystal clear. He had seen right through Bailey Changqing's ambition. He knew Bailey wanted that promotion. Alright everyone, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We'll be back tomorrow with another exciting episode. Until then, take care, and remember, stay safe.